The recording has just started,
Yep.
and thank you everybody for joining us
Okay.
today. We are 8 of us.
Okay. Thanks. Well, welcome everyone to this amazing start of a Wise Mirror discussion with Project Gapnium podcasts on a dialogue of the rapid progress of AI and its many applications, manifestations en route to AGI and ASI. So AI, as we know currently, is ANI, which is artificial narrow intelligence, and we're on the journey towards artificial general intelligence and eventually artificial super intelligence. So how can we optimize humans plus AI with a flip to IA? That's the way we kind of referring to it, is intelligence augmented. And really that builds towards what we in Wise Mirror collectively as part of our Wetopia are calling as the foundations for AWI, which is awakened wise intelligence. So I think this is a start of many a series of interesting discussions that we'll have and great wisdom share amongst all of us. I just wanted to start with maybe a quotation from Sundar Pichai, who made this in July 2021, that AI is the most profound technology that humanity will ever develop and work on. It is even more profound than fire or electricity or the internet. So that is pretty profound. That's a very big statement. And I think we've all witnessed this super exponential growth. We've seen it coming. It's been worked on for decades and decades. We've been through AI winters, summers. I think now we're in autumn, and some of you are in a spring, as one may call it. But we're just seeing so much happen. And I mean, I just finished watching the AI Dilemma earlier today, on my things to do, but just finally caught up on it. And it was, again, a great wake up. I'm sure nearly all of you have seen it. And we can even discuss some interesting elements from that. So I'm not going too much further into things, but I think let's start with what I thought we'll start off with, just some general thoughts on how do we define intelligence and what are the types of intelligence. Actually, what I did do was I went to ChatGPT and I did type in what is intelligence. So I'll just read out quickly the first paragraph it came up with, and then we'll start off with everybody else, please, contributing some other facets and your thoughts on it. So intelligence, as ChatGPT has said, is a complex and multifaceted concept that has been studied, debated by scholars, scientists, and philosophers for centuries. At its core, intelligence can be understood as the ability to acquire, process, and apply information in a flexible and adaptive way. However, there are many different theories and definitions of intelligence, and the concept is still the subject of ongoing research and exploration. And it goes on and on after that. And so let's just ponder on that broad topic to start with. Anyone want to come in?
Anuraj, this is Ashok. I'll start. I think that's a good paradox that you just presented. You defined intelligence using an AI tool, and it is obviously complex. And I think the other part that I appreciated was it realized its own limitations or constraints of context in which we apply the intelligence or the insight that is generated. So maybe the two other aspects, one is human intelligence. It would be good to understand how ChatGPT defines human. And the other aspect of application is wisdom. So how does ChatGPT translate or behave in separating or discerning wisdom from intelligence? Thank you.
Thank you. That's really wonderful. What a great thought to ponder on. And we'll just type in ChatGPT and see what it comes up with while someone else wants to share something.
Yeah. I'd like to point out that Howard Gardner has a theory of multiple intelligences, and that different people have or don't have strengths in a whole slew of these, and some have, we often think of like the mathematical linguistic, which may actually be one of the multiples. But some of them include like a movement or like a kinesthetic one. Obviously athletes have those. There's one that he calls interpersonal intelligence, and yet another one that he calls inner personal intelligence. And for a while now, I've been theorizing that perhaps there's another one that we could call transpersonal intelligence. And looking at the definition of artificial, you could say that artificial is man-made based on a natural model. That's one of the more interesting definitions of artificial that I've seen. And so perhaps if there is a transpersonal intelligence and we have a man-made intelligence based on a natural model or artificial intelligence, that perhaps there is a form that could be developed, which would be an artificial transpersonal intelligence. Transpersonal being that you define, you expand your boundaries of personal to include others. And so perhaps AI could expand what it considers to be personal to include humans, other AIs, etc.
Yeah, I love that,
Thanks.
Ross. Thank you. And certainly the term transdisciplinary and transhumanism is also interrelated very much with that.
Oh yeah.
I think Peter may
Yeah,
want
very
to
cool.
shed some light on that term and how it
I like that.
interrelates.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all about how do we, transcend the limitations of the human condition around transhumanism, and AI is sort of, any use of technology with humanity has been on that journey, but AI is really taking that to the next level. I'd like to mention around, Anuraj, your, the super intelligence concept, because us as humans, we think we're pretty smart, but, if you compare that to a chimpanzee, right? Like there's this sort of thing, the difference in intelligence, if you're trying to measure that. And if we're creating this sort of new intelligence that's starting to go beyond human intelligence, well, potentially they'll look upon us as the chimpanzee, right? There's a huge difference in that capability, right? And so, what are the alignment things that we've been talking about? How do we ensure that as we're creating artificial general intelligence and artificial super intelligence, that we do it in a way that, this other more intelligent being starts to think of us as through curious lens, rather than going back and killing all the monkeys, which we don't do, right? Like, unless you're poachers or things like that. Here we want to make sure that they're still curious and want to maintain that aspect of what we are. And transhumanism is trying to find an optimistic pathway towards that, because we want to see how we can potentially merge with AI such that we don't get left behind on that journey. So using things like brain-computer interfaces and slowly being able to convert our biological minds with more artificial minds. So things like our neurons with synthetic neurons, expanding our capacity, our processing, our memory, access to the internet, the collective intelligence of all of humanity. This is what, the promise of brain-computer interfaces is looking to offer. So yeah, that's the optimistic doomer, definitely not a denialist type of view, but got a few things to talk about.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. And you've got the three different pillars of transhumanism, right? Super intelligence, super well-being, and super longevity.
Yeah, that's right.
Well-being.
Yeah, and
Did I get them
the
right?
likes of Yeah, that's right. And the likes of Ray Kurzweil is hoping that, AGI will hopefully solve the longevity problem to make sure that biologically we continue to live healthier and longer and definitely into the future. But at the pace that AI is going, I think, we got bigger worries to be worried about than even our sort of immediate short-term longevity side of things.
Yeah.
You know what you said made me think about how we think of AGI as basically having an AI that has the intelligence of an average human, and that beyond that would be artificial superintelligence. But I never really thought of like the ability to search human knowledge from multiple humans basically at instantaneous speed, which is what we have with the internet, and how that might be, with this collective access, through time, we could look up things, that, from like centuries ago. We can communicate with people basically at the speed of light, in real time, like we're doing now, all around the world. And, even, people have talked about how search engines, like Google, have given us, thinking of that as kind of like the precursor to what like a chat GPT-4 could do. But I never really thought about like what we're going for and how we're like defining AGI and ASI as just, access. And of course, there's also the aspect of the training, and what gets left out, because a controversial aspect of AI is the human training aspect, of the people who have to, of the people who get, a couple pennies a day, who actually have to look at the world's most horrific images and read the most disgusting rants, to come from people all over the world. And those are the people who are doing some of this training, and they are, filtering out these things. But we have had AIs that have go on racist screeds already. And, part of, I say like design, people like blame technology. Oh, this technology isn't working. And I always say that was designed by a human. Maybe you should perhaps remember that there is, blame the designer perhaps, or blame the engineer, and how we have this concept of technologies that really mask all of the humanity that's already underneath it. Especially if you look at the, I talk about the relationship between the word technology and technique, with techne, which is a skill that is a Greek word that is intentional, undertaking that is associated with a human practitioner, where the human practitioner can give an account. I do this and then this happens. This happens, then this happens. They can explain. And that there's another aspect of this concept, this skill, this Greek concept of techne, that where we get technique and technology from, is that the practitioner actually cares for the output of their craft as well.
Certainly.
Yes, that I really liked what you just said, Ross. So if we think about the design of the system as opposed to the interacting parts and the processes, how would you model the process of mastery of a domain using the hybrid of human intelligence and augmented intelligence? So how do we go from distributed data models and architecture to a real-time serendipitous synchronization for wisdom to perpetually emerge within the context of our work. Yeah, I
Ashok,
mean,
one of the
it's
clear, interesting factors is that they had artificial intelligence that were domain specific, let's say artificial intelligence for medicine. And then they went to LLMs, which had the emergence, which actually became better in medicine than the narrow intelligence. And that shows the cross-domain transdisciplinarity of intelligence, which I would like to reinforce as Yuval Harari and Max Tegmark's podcast I shared, that they define intelligence as a capacity of solving problems. But problems are not context specific. You sometimes have a problem regarding health that's got to do with social sciences, that's got to do with economics, that's got to do with philosophy and theology. So we as humans are not full of boxes. This is my medicine boxes. We are one thing with problems that are complex in nature. And intelligence is being emerging from complexity, not from narrowing, like we do for you to become excellent in something, you become a doctor or a lawyer. We do narrow our intelligence to become excellent. Artificial intelligence has actually become large to become intelligent. It's a different way of becoming. And then another thing that they mentioned, Yuval, and that is a concept of conscious. And conscience is also defined by these two as the self-awareness and capacity of feeling yourself and your surroundings. Well, with IoT, artificial intelligence will be able to sense itself and its surroundings. So artificial intelligence will have, artificial conscience will have. Then the question is artificial wisdom. And what is human wisdom? Wisdom is the capacity of choosing the best, considering the outcomes in short, mid, and long term. So is it wise to start nuclear war? Well, consider the short, mid, and is it wise to start a nuclear power plant? Is it wise? So all these questions we have as a human, but what is the possibility of artificial wisdom? Well, then it comes through the biggest question, which is what are we solving for? What is the problem? Because then there is this dilemma. Well, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Artificial intelligence may categorize humans like that. If you're not solving for the solution, you're part of the problem, must be eliminated. This has been happening in humanity for ages. Tribalism is based on that. When you can't solve a problem, you point to the ones that are part of the problem. You say, okay, the Jews are the problem, or the Muslims are the problem, or the rich are the problem. And you label the part of humanity you consider as being the problem, not understanding that Solzhenitsyn, very wise passage on Gulag Archipelago that says the line of good and evil passes through every single human's heart. Therefore, there is no human that is totally saint and is out of that is not capable of evil, and there's no human that's also totally evil. Therefore, the question is, how do we maximize virtue and minimize vice, but assuring every human's life, which is the big question here. What are we solving for today's humans, the future humans, or the past humans? And that's where I think Elon Musk has got the biggest insight, which is awaken the universe. The universe, as far as we know, is not conscious about itself, except with us. And now, as artificial intelligence comes to life, what would be the problem we're going to solve? The problem we're going to solve is the universe. We awaken the universe. And if we point that, we'll also have to safeguard us, we hope, with artificial intelligence. That's the problem I think we're trying to solve.
I really appreciate the way you approach that, Mario, especially the human capacity to think out of the box and build a new box. And the other is that we do not master something by staying general. We have to get into the specifics and into the use cases of our problem set. And so not to overgeneralize too quickly, and also to frame our assumptions of how we are going to use this tool to help humanity or advance the cause that we are trying to build a case for. In this case, how do we propagate wisdom amongst a distributed, intelligent workforce with multiple needs and multiple services that we're trying to invest in to build for the world. Anuraj, can you summarize where we're at and where you'd like to go with the next part of our conversation?
Okay, well, let me just,
otherwise we can be like that big void that's in your background, and then
right.
I would love to bring in the how do we compute compassion?
Yes, well, spot on, Ashok. I was just actually looking at the results from ChatGPT on wisdom and intelligence and the distinct sort of comparisons and the elements of interchangeability. So I'll just quickly summarize from that what it says. It's basically saying intelligence is referring to acquiring, processing, applying knowledge, and the ability to solve problems and adapt to new situations, such as IQ tests and cognitive ability and so forth. Whereas wisdom refers to the deeper understanding of the world of oneself, just as we were just discussing earlier, and it's associated with emotional intelligence, involves awareness and understanding of one's own emotions and others, as well as the ability to regulate and manage emotions effectively. So it's really it's talking about wisdom requires life experience, empathy, and the ability to understand the complex social dynamics and human behavior. So I think, as we've been discussing with our wise mirror, with our key traits, the attributes, that's where the wise sort of attributes are very much interlinked. So I think that was a great ponder as Mario talked about Max Tegmark's and the podcast, which I was actually also part of the way listening to. And I think we are trying to home in on, okay, what are the key traits of intelligence and wisdom? So, and if anybody else wants to share something around that, or the types of intelligence, which is what Robo was mentioning. Mm-hmm. And I also looked at some of the types from ChatGPT. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to chime in on some of the things people were talking about. And the first thing is, so because we have now this artificial neuron, in the way that these large language models with the transformer work. So we have a system now that can pretty much take the load off of the human brain. So as you move forward, it's like just through a process of attrition. So the percentage of the artificial brains contributing to the next steps of technological advancement will just by the fact that they are faster and quicker and more efficient, they will be contributing more and more and more, and the human percentage will become less and less and less. And before long, our human contribution will be less than 1%, which leads me to the next point and what Peter said, and that is we really need to be working on that BCI, the brain computer interface, so that we can either merge with intelligence or tag along for the ride, or whatever you want to call it. We don't know how it's all going to pan out, but that obviously then leads to the alignment issue that if we Wise Mirror is a very good example of where potentially there is an alignment that isn't based on a human perspective, that is just based on a moral perspective, if that is at all possible. And that if you believe that a moral perspective is a good perspective, and if we have the good side of humanity and the good side of the artificial intelligence, then the moral alignment will emerge as a default way of coexisting. And that's what hopefully will happen.
Mm.
That's just what I wanted to say.
When
Yeah.
so the first cyber word ever was cybernetic, from the early 19th century, and it was the idea was that it was a form of political science, in which the governing body would use discernment to choose the appropriate governance technique for the situation, as opposed to them just choosing a technique of governance that was going to further their own desires. So when Norbert Wiener eventually came up with the concept of cybernetics, he was inspired by making anti-aircraft guns faster to aim. And so what he did was he actually took inspiration from organisms and homeostasis, the self-regulating natural phenomenon that sustains life, and then he applied that to machines and not the other way around. So and the moral, the relationship between cybernetic and moral and the just goes back to where we actually get the word cyber and government and governor, which is from the Greek word kybernetes. I've been talking about this for a couple of years. Really talk, and also this relates to regulation as well. So and also the neurons, like what a neuron does is it takes input, and then it has a little processing core, and then it gives an output. So really, and like cybernetics, it's all about like feedback, but you have like negative feedback and you have positive feedback. And negative feedback is something that you sort of, the way that you like solve for something that is an undesirable sort of result is you try to counteract that so that you bring the system back into balance. That's negative feedback. Whereas positive feedback is like, oh, if a nuclear plant is melting down, right, and it's overheating, then it starts melting the systems that are responsible for the cooling, and it will continue to progress in the direction of overheating. And that is positive. That is what positive feedback is. So this, like, it comes down to, like, when we're talking about using AI for coming up with solutions, it's kind of like the identification and the data mining and that the consciousness, I guess, of when you're saying, oh, well, we want to come up with a solution to a problem, that identification of like, okay, what is the problem? Because if the problem that we're trying to solve is like, oh, we have a bad situation, right? And then something starts moving in the other direction towards repairing that and going into a good situation, there's the possibility that whatever that processing unit, whether it's the neuron or the artificial neuron or whatever, if it's not able to discern or know from, I don't know, human perspective or whosever perspective, what the actual problem that we're trying to solve is, that it could actually say, uh-oh, they're trying to like solve global warming. They're taking steps to change the current situation, which in the case of global warming would happen to be a situation that we actually don't want. So we have to think
It's how
about
you train it. Yeah.
what is identifying the problem and not and say what is the balance, what is the equilibrium, what is the end, sort of state that we want. Oh, we want a climate that is sustainable for life. And
I saw an interesting approach to this, and it was actually created by, I posted it in our chat, the Wise Mirror chat. It's from David Shapiro, and it's about the reinforcement learning using heuristic imperatives. So right now, as we know, ChatGPT-4 is trained using reinforcement learning with human feedback, right? RLHF. And that's how, they started with a huge large language model, probably 1 trillion parameters, and they got human feedback to tune it based on the weights, and those weights determine what output you see through ChatGPT-4. And so that's based on human feedback. But what David Shapiro is putting forward is that there is a way to get that alignment with humanity in a way that it's moral, in a way that it's wise, right? So using that approach. So rather than using humans as feedback, what are our heuristic imperatives? What are the things that we want for the positive future of humanity that we want to build? And, like Mario's point earlier, there might be people that are training it who are racist and who are, really, morally unacceptable in society, but that they're still human, right? We're the average of everyone. And so how do we actually tune it to the point where it's not censorship, right? We want to make sure there is still freedom of speech, but not to the detriment of, our moral ends and heuristic imperatives. So that's one approach. I mean, it's still going to be a trial and error at this rate because, no one has a real answer. At least it's an optimistic approach to a way forward, which is, I'll like to explore
Peter,
further.
May I come in?
Sure, Yeliz, please.
First of all, it truly is an honor to be in the space of all of you. It's so much intelligence, and I was just thinking, how can I add value towards all these beautiful conversations? And I love what Peter just shared, and Mario and Roy. And on top of that, Ashok, the question you asked is very important. How can we experience compassion? How can we experience love at the deepest level through technology? That is a beautiful question to ponder upon. And it made me think of information is everywhere, and we're looking for wisdom, and we have a mind level wisdom. We have heart level wisdom, and we have soul level wisdom. And as a heart level wisdom, at the moment, technology is learning, just like Peter was mentioning, it is learning from humans. So whatever we are giving out as a data, that's what the technology is learning at the moment. So to me, the question is, how can we as human beings in us accept ourselves and stop judging ourselves and love ourselves as is? Because that's how we can awaken love and compassion. How can we take off the borders of separation of our minds in real life? And then we start vibrating at such a high level of thought, high level of emotions as acceptance, love, gratitude. And through that frequency, I think next level is going to be, as we're teaching emotional intelligence to these technologies through our experiences, next level is going to be frequency intelligence, meaning maybe there is already happening when technology can sense those frequencies of our hearts and sense the frequency of our intentions and purity. And that would be the next level of technology feeling us and vibrating as us. And the leaders, spiritual leaders, and people who have already walked the awakening path, and being in their presence, you know, like in real life, when we meditate with Dalai Lama, or when we meditate with someone that is cleansing their ego, that is, you know, working on themselves consciously, we feel them somehow. Their words touch our hearts, touch our soul, and we feel like we're lightened up. And they have no information, they don't know about economics, they don't know about technology, but somehow it elevates us. So I think it's going to be the next level, us somehow connecting through frequency. So that's what I wanted to add. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yelish. I think that is just spot on, the direction that we were wanting to head towards. Maybe I'll just
Yes.
quickly summarize that the definition of awakened intelligence from what we are seeing is really the power to see the whole of reality with calm, awake, clarity, and wisdom. That's, I think, the way we talked about. And I had a great chat with Stephen Alte, who's hopefully going to be joining us shortly. He's actually at Tokyo Airport finishing a meeting right now. And Dr. Allen also was very keen to join, but he's doing a keynote at this time. But I think the direction of our discussion, exactly the way Peter was saying, and the BMI, the BCI, that direction of how we see, when Roy mentioned about how do we really bring that flip back to humans plus AI? I think we've only been using such a short percentage of our human power, right? What did Einstein say? Was it 12% or less? And
Less.
at the peak, it's even less, right? It's below, it's in single digits. So
And-
that's the average. And the maximum peak has been just in the early, tens or whatever it is. So I think there's so much more that AI can teach us back and reawaken us. And I think it's those trigger points that Yeliz was saying, exactly how we can uplift our total mind, our heart, the vagal toning element that we've been discussing. That'll be a key part of how do we get the BMI aligned to the new level.
And
Yeah.
Sorry,
Mitash, maybe even furthermore, we can even think of the next step, and that would be the spiritual intelligence. Because currently we are decoding our DNA. We're literally through the technology decoding what matter is, and we're using only 1.5% of our DNA, and we're talking about this junk DNA, and it's not. It is our spiritual DNA. When we start decoding our humanistic spiritual DNA, then we will get to teach that or give feedback to the technology, and eventually we will unite.
Yeah,
Wow.
Yeliz, this transition from thinking about parts and movement to potential and energy, that's a very interesting transition, which our training in school has to change to become quiet enough so you can go into deep listening and inner awakening. Seems counterintuitive to building a system that is buzzing with access to trillions of data points and trying to build a visual or an experiential framework through which we can pass. So I like this. Maybe for ChatGPT, Anuraj, how does it define spiritual intelligence? And for Ross, there's a University of Alberta professor came out with a paper on towards the science of transpersonal psychology. And that's a really, I think everyone's talked about that. That's, for me, really helpful. And I think for purpose, I'm curious, as a Rotary Fellow, there's a Peace Fellows that created a global declaration on positive peace, and I'll send it forward. But in that reference from Rotary for its Peace Fellowship, it used the Institute of Education or Economics for Peace, so IEP, and that has 8 pillars, Mario. So I like this idea that if we think about anything, we should think about it in both positive and negative feedback loops. And peace could be one of those topics that we could entertain. How do we connect wise mirror activities to fulfilling a goal of positive peace? And what are the measures, let's say, of SDG 18 that hold us accountable in an ethical way going forward toward a more peaceful and loving and caring world?
I think one of the really good potential applications of ANI is taking sensor data. We've just discussed how trying to draw conclusions from let's say a multi-point EEG reading to try and make some sort of interpretations about what's happening psychologically, even neurally, is a major challenge. But we have data points regarding subtle energy, certain vibrations are associated with theta waves or like this range, or so if we apply the ANI to like the filtration, the amplification, and the processing, the data mining, and the interpretation of the sensor data, then that's how we could do something like an electromyograph type of vagus nerve sensing. Like biosensors are super awesome, but I think in terms of like with Centix, which associates pressure time curves with certain emotions, performing something kind of like an FFT on these incoming signals, and of course, because our brain is already filtering out most of the sensory information that's coming towards our brain anyway. So we have all of these sensors that we can it's funny to think of like having sensors like computer vision augmenting our human vision, not just in a sense of like, oh, it will help us detect whatever, just in the sense of like, oh, well, that's a signal that was maybe headed towards the brain, but the brain filtered it out. So doing this interpretation and utilizing ANI to help us just trying to make sense of all the types of data that we can gather, and we know that we can gather biometrically.
No, totally. And I think that's where you're spot on with ANI application in terms of at the edge, AI at the edge, right? Which is edge of fog analytics, where I think we can do so much more. In fact, while we were just chatting, I just got, my camera on the outside just alerted me saying there's a package that arrived. So obviously that was a good AI at the edge function saying it recognized there was a package, and it alerted me on my phone saying it's arrived. And so yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we can do that with BCI. We can do that with multiple biofeedback sensors and apply a lot more intelligence that can be giving. And that certainly, I see that in wearables, where we can have people nudge the right instances to give them, be at the right, stand up, as we already seeing from our watches at the right time, or do certain activity, or be able to, take a slow and deep breath. And so I think there's exactly that point in IoT that can be availed a lot deeper for ANI. But I think as we are developing, and what Yeliz was talking about is really that frequency, the energy. And when we look at the Earth's resonant frequency of 7.83 hertz, which is the Schumann frequency, and the resonant frequency, which is where I think the human body is most aligned with, the harmonious vagus stimulation that we can get is really at that level where we can align ourselves with nature, with everybody else, and that deep connection, which is very much that frequency translated to that universal energy.
We were playing it through our transducer at an event this weekend.
Okay.
And people were standing on the transducer and they were looking at sacred geometry projection mapped onto a God's eye. And then they would step off the platform and then they would continue to feel the vibration. And we felt that we realized that like people were very like suggestible, like at that point, and whatever kind of like, like somebody would tell them that they were experiencing at that time would definitely flavor how they would interpret what they were going through, because they were continuing to feel this sensation. So, but yeah, that was big on our list.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Hey, Anuraj, can I just pause?
Sure.
So, we've talked a lot and we recorded a lot. How does listening and silence impact the stream of consciousness as we breathe, as we become aware, and as we also detach? Because I think unplugging from some source of energy, I mean, it may be healthy for us rather than stay addicted and go to a different dimension and never be able to come back.
Wow, I love that. I think, and that's what we need to constantly do when there's such an highly exponential sort of growth happening around, and that I would say the overwhelming nature of technology and its applications. We do need to take more constant pauses and ponder, and sort of to have that mindful breather to sit and sort of figure out how meaningful is this. And I think that's when just watching the AI dilemma earlier, and of course the social dilemma we've all seen, right? Which I think the way Tristan Harris puts it, obviously, is also that ponder that the Center for Humane Technologies that they're running is being able to say, okay, we need to pause the public deployment of this technology, is what they're saying, which is another pause, of course, at a different level, but they're not pausing the development of it, which is going to carry on. But I think, yeah, it's a matter of the scientists and the researchers and the developers also taking constant pauses as they're developing and nurturing the technology. So it actually very much applies across the board, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I just so the pause that I put is I've seen the picture with all of your faces and screenshot, and I pause to just revere in awe and humility how wonderful it is to be connected in this space. And it sort of became timeless for a little bit, even though it's like 2:30 in the morning here. and I think these altered states of consciousness will allow us the beauty of awareness and the dilemma of, well, how do we stay grounded in something when we leave this elite experience of what I consider elite, and go back to our other life, right? So just something to ponder. One word that came up as Yeliz was talking, how do we connect the right brain, the left brain, the social brain, the executive brain, was reverence. And this is out of a book that Gary Zukov wrote called Seat of the Soul. And this, if we can maintain reverence, we will always have humility and curiosity. And I don't think AI or any other machine would take over that unique signature that we would bring to the world with our awareness. And it may be a good thing, it may be a confabulation, but it becomes yours. You get to own it and narrate it into whatever you want to pass on. But
Totally.
let's stay reverent and pause once in a while to enjoy our friendships, to enjoy our creativity, and then take this social responsibility that you've so nicely codified, all of us together. So thank you.
Thank you, Ashok. Yeah, we really appreciate your amazing energy that you're exuberating at this hour and your timeless wisdom, I would say. It's
No,
just
it's all your faults.
uh, well, you
But
just knocked me
but I
into
love it. I love it.
yeah. Well, you remember we had that discussion with Professor Julia Mossbridge, and she runs this entity called Tilt, and also the Loving AI, which is their manifestation. And I think it's a good timely spark to get her back on an interesting discussion. And maybe I'll reach out to her again, and because that's, I think, so much more needed, as you so rightly pointed, that we need to take that pause and ponder on really the deep, meaningful aspects of what we truly are about that humanity needs. And I think all this is really contributing to the SDG 18 work that we need to pull together.
Is she involved in transpersonal psychology as well?
I believe so, yeah. You remember we had I mean, she runs the Institute for Love and Time, and they've been working on some very interesting things there. I remember they were working on an app. I had several conversations with her actually a while ago. But
Because
yeah,
there's one person that perhaps it was her, because I think it was just one session that we had with the woman who was involved as a professor in one of these transpersonal psychology programs. So cool.
right. Yeah.
I also really enjoyed what Ashok just shared. Breathing is super important. It reminds me of bringing my consciousness from my analytical or mind level wisdom to my heart, and then it slows down to the soul level, and it takes out the information from a soul level. That's why I do agree, breathing and taking that pause, because our minds want to share all the time. It just something comes up, and it's generally the information that it shares, it comes from the experience that we have learned on this physical level. But there is more to it. And when we take that breath, we can dive into the heart level intelligence than the soul level. And I highly believe that the future of currency will be consciousness, because a high conscious person spending time with a chat GPT learning from that high level consciousness person, that is going to be the currency of the future.
Oh my
And
God. Oh my God. Elise.
Consciousness.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was experiencing earlier last week. And I mean, not the high conscious human, but the integration and the potential acceleration, or as Mario mentioned, exponential development of awareness. And that it's so blissful. And at the same time, you have to learn that it's like a solar flare inside. You have to contain that energy, because you can share it, but others won't connect with it.
right. And another question that I would love to dwell into maybe on our next meetings would be the frequency of our intentions. Because just like Peter was mentioning, we are diverse. Being human, it has the positive side, it has the negative side. It has the birth, it also has death. And our intentions can go both ways. And we as human beings not always share our true intent. So how can these chat GPT connect with our true intent? All those things, like at a higher and a deeper level. I would love to tap into your minds, hearts, and souls, and let the universe speak through us, maybe on our next conversation.
Sure, Yeliz. I think that's a great topic of really the deep purpose, intent, and the context that AI it needs, basically, and how is it really being manifested. So I thought even next time, because I realized we've already running out of time today, but there's so many different chapters and so many sessions that we can have on many ponders here. I thought we can also have everybody share what they've been tinkering with. What are some of the practical? So we've been talking a little bit about abstract elements. Let's go into some more practical now and here. And I know Roy and Peter have certainly been playing a lot also with and everybody, I'm sure we've all tinkered a lot with some of the great tools that are out there. and what has been your awakening while you've been exploring that, and what have been some of those learnings that we can cross share. That would be a great thing to start with next time. Maybe we spend a good half of the call in that, and then we can go into our really philosophical journey that we just started pondering on just now.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Yeah, we'll showcase some of the things that will help us get our creative outputs as well from this group.
Yes, I think because we certainly started off with the white mirror concept, which was the flip on the black mirror. And I think that really triggered off so much in terms of providing that very positively deep, abundant psychology aspects of saying, how do we bring that very, exponential positivity, one may say, around it, but also the deep impact that it will leave for humanity in the most profound and rightful way. And so I think in that journey, what is it that white mirror elements and transmedia topics could we ponder? We don't necessarily need to do flips of pure black mirror, but what are some of the new areas that we could work on in terms of content or things? We could explore some ideas on that potentially as we talk about the tools, and then we can integrate that with what are the the AWI aspects that we bring around it.
Yeah, let's do a live demo and throw in some scripts on the right. Sounds
Wonderful.
good, guys.
That would be great.
Okay.
Yes, wonderful meeting y'all. Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Awesome.
guys.
Thanks for staying up,
Thank you so
Ashok.
much.
Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Take care,
everyone.
everyone.
Great to see everyone. Love you so much.
Bye,
Wonderful.
Russ.
Wonderful.
Bye,
Hey,
Mario.
happy
Good to see you,
happy
Roy.
birthday.
Good to see you, Beta.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
happy
Ashok.
birthday,
Thank
Liz.
you,
Yes, guys.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We
Happy
stop the
birthday
recording.
Mario as
already,
well.
Mario. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday. Yes, Europe, and both of
Good
you in
stuff.
Europe.
So
Yeah.
amazing.
Great. So if you can share this recording, who's got the recording? Mario?
Mario just asked me if I'm getting the recording. I think Mario, are you gonna get it because you are the co-host?